IVM.
Ad campaigns, your favorite?
Lots of them, some of it my own. So, for example, a lot of body of work we've done for Spotify. The pieces which ran in IPL quite close to my heart. The work I did early on for Virgin Mobile. Some of the older
In UK.
audiences would relate to that. You have to understand, very few people in India understand money. Bulk of the people don't understand money, right? In fact, there's a community which understands money. Rest of India doesn't understand the flow idea of money, right? They feel that money, when kept inside our pillows and our FDs, is a good place to keep money, right? What influencers have allowed the new age brands to do is give them a quick shortcut to trust. Right? So you may not trust me as a brand yet because I have just launched my brand, but I am talking to you through an influencer who you trust, right? So that's become the via media, right? And therefore, I think it's a fantastic medium which has come up between large scale celebrities, TV advertising, and performance marketing. I think IPL has been a great platform, right? It's expensive, but couple of things. One is that it goes on for 4 months, right? So if you stay out of IPL, you're pretty much not doing media for 4 months, which is like one full quarter in a year, right? So a lot of times you don't have a choice but to go on IPL, because during IPL, if you go to any other media, you're not getting any bang for your
Like the
buck.
Super Bowl of the US.
Yeah, it's a Super Bowl, right? We have always seen that whenever you've got a brand to IPL, and coming out of IPL, we've had a huge delta.
Wow.
Whether it's been PhonePe, whether it's been Echo, whether it's been Spotify, all the brands we've taken to IPL, we've come out with a huge delta. It's expensive. It's the best ROI platform in the country.
Wow.
Right?
For that kind of expense, it's still the best
It's still the best ROI platform in the
amazing.
country. If you want to go from, say, 60 million, 70 million base to 100 million, 120 million base, nothing like IPL, right?
Okay.
The way it helps you scale up. Also, finance brands take themselves too seriously, right? So it has to be engaging. It has to be entertaining. It has to be simpler, right? I want to have a brand which I want to hang around with. Why should banks feel like my father or my grandfather? I think that attitude needs to change.
Folks, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter. And on today's episode, I'm talking about the business of influence, advertising, messaging, much more. My guest, Dheeraj Sinha, Group CEO for India and South Asia, FCB Group. We're going to talk about the wave. Dheeraj, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Great to be here. Look
for
forward.
First time I have an advertising person on my show. I'm like really thrilled about this. Yeah.
Amazing. Advertising and money.
Advertising and money, yeah. And you're a podcaster. My God, look
Yes,
at that.
yeah.
Well, tell us about your podcast.
So it's called Speak Easy with Dheeraj Sinha, right? As simple as that. And we discuss business, new age businesses. We talk a lot with founders, VCs, brand building. So it's all about building brands and businesses in the new age.
Nice.
And it's been 4 seasons now. So great
Wow.
learning and great listenership as well.
Good to know that, folks. And you're on a break as of now, but you'll come back with the new season soon.
Yes, yeah. So it's been 4 seasons now. So I'm taking a quick break because I'm in between jobs. So I just joined FCB, quit Leo Burnett,
Right.
and the new season will come soon.
And you've been in advertising for like,
For 23 years.
my God, look at that. Yeah. And we're going to talk about all of that, folks, and about business also on the other side. But let's start this half with advertising. You're a veteran, okay? Now, in general, I'm a guy who doesn't know advertising at all. I just know what are good ads and you're not so good
Yeah.
ads and stuff like that. In your view, what makes a memorable ad campaign? Like, what are the elements of a good ad in
Yeah.
your view?
See, a couple of things. One is that, there has to be something in the ad, something which is cultural or something that people can relate to in their own memory structure, which reminds them of something that they've been through. So, for example, when we said "aur dikhao" with Amazon, it stuck suddenly because we have that behavior. हम बाजार जाते हैं बोलते हैं और दिखाओ साड़ियाँ और दिखाओ कुछ और दिखाओ. Suddenly you put that in advertising. You borrow something from the culture and put in advertising. People say, yeah, I relate with that. So it connects to your current memory structure, right? Whether it is something entertaining, a phrase, a culture piece, something which is insightful. So that's one big element of what sticks in good advertising. The second thing is simplicity. Right? Because, we are all, I call ourselves triple filtered MBAs, right? We've studied too much, right? And we overthink sometimes when we are creating a piece of communication, right? People are not analyzing everything. They're just passing by and they come across a piece of ad, or they come across a piece of podcast or a piece of book, right? And it has to be very, very simple. It has to put less cognitive load on people's mind. So if you're simple, you are entertaining, and with that you push a messaging. So my example is that to a child, would you give a bitter pill or would you give a pill coated in chocolate? Right? What are the chances of what goes in? So the chocolate coating is very, very important in good advertising.
Yeah. Ad campaigns, your favorite?
Lots of them, some of it my own. So for example, a lot of body of work we've done for Spotify. The pieces which ran in IPL, quite close to my heart. The work I did early on for Virgin Mobile. Some of the older
In UK.
audiences would relate to that. That's been my favorite. A lot of the work which is happening internationally at this point in time, Anupam, because they're using very different ideas. So there's this campaign which is very close to my heart. It's by an insurance brand called Suncorp. And in Australia. So if you look at the context of Australia, it's a country which gets ravaged by hurricanes and fire and flood, right? And you're an insurance brand. They did not put out an ad. They actually went and built a house, right? They built a house. The campaign is called One House Which Saves Many. In that house, they've built all the technologies which can prevent you from fire, flood, hurricane.
Wow.
And those technologies are now open source. So if you're building a house in Australia, you could borrow technology from that one house into your house and make your house fireproof. And that house has now become a campaign. It's called One House to Save Many. So I am now fond of ideas which actually solve a problem, and then that piece becomes a video, etc., and becomes an ad.
Yeah, lovely. Now let's move to money. Dheeraj, in case of financial products, and here I'm talking of the entire thing, could be a bank account, could be a credit card, could be an insurance policy, could be a mutual fund, could be anything. How is that different? How is that different from, say, selling a soap or selling a car? What's different about money?
Yeah. See, I think a couple of things. One is that what happens is, and a lot of the bank brands and a lot of the finance brands are notorious for doing this. We make things complicated, right? See, you have to understand, very few people in India understand money. Bulk of the people don't understand money, right? In fact, there's a community which understands money. Rest of India doesn't understand the flow idea of money, right? They feel that money, when kept inside our pillows and our FDs, is a good place to keep money, right?
Yeah.
So that's the context of India. Now, to that India, if you further complicate the idea, right? You say, oh my God, insurance is a subject of market risk and so on and so. The guy gets worried, right? Oh my God, mera ye hard-earned money. These guys will take it, will never come back. Either which ways, there are so many stories. So the biggest thing in financial advertising is to go simple, right? And therefore, stuff which have worked in this area are places where we've not complicated things. We've come completely simple. We say we are the expert. Don't try to teach the person to become an expert. You are a CA, right? Not everybody is a CA, right? And the reason we go to experts is because you do it. I mean, not everybody wants to become a doctor. You go to a doctor, say, doctor, I have a problem, you solve it for me. So making it simple, saying that it's easy for you to do, right? So for example, when we are building brands like Acco, right, we are trying to make, say, auto insurance very, very simple. We are saying claim making very simple. Take a picture, put it on your app, and your claim is settled, right? So this whole transition which the finance brands have now learned, that you cannot further complicate it, is very, very important. A. B, I think a certain sense of trust is very important, right? And trust comes from very many sources, comes from the name you have. If you're HDFC Bank, you have trust automatically, right? But if you're Acco, you are new, how do you build trust, right? Sometimes trust also comes from familiarity, right? I mean, you have met a couple of times, we meet 20 more times, I begin to like you, I begin to trust you. So if I see the brand very often, I'm seeing it on TV, I'm seeing it on digital, I'm seeing it on physical, trust gets built very, very quickly. So I would say simplicity and trust are the two big things, very, very important in financial brand advertising.
Yeah, so I want your thoughts on what has been one of the most effective ad campaigns in the last, I would say, started in 16, that's probably 8 years, which is the mutual fund Sahi Hai ad campaign. That was actually started by a regulatory body, AMFI, supported by pretty much the entire mutual fund industry. The timing, of course, was phenomenal because it came at a time when you had a lot of things happening in the background, whether it is the jam trinity, as it's called, Aadhaar, mobile, Geo, etc., etc., and of course then demonetization, and all of that kind of came together to just give some great numbers. I mean, we now have $2 billion of SIP coming in month after month after month in the stock markets. Demat accounts are through, the numbers are through the chart, trading, etc. So it's obvious that a lot of the messaging has worked.
Yeah.
Okay, whether it's also the money that a lot of brands put in with IPL campaigns and etc. So, what's your thought about that? I just want first on the mutual fund Sahi Hai campaign.
Yeah.
Because you spoke about simplicity and trust.
Yeah.
What about brand ambassadors? Because mutual fund Sahi Hai uses like the who's who. It's got like I think it's got Dhoni. It's got a lot of people. So
See, I think if you ask me honestly, the bulk of my memory structure on mutual fund Sahi Hai is because it has this assurance tone of voice. Right?
Very important.
Yeah, that is very important, right? Because it's about money, right? So somebody comes, say, that's like between you and me, my friends, right? I'm saying, Anupam, where do I invest money? Say, put it here. It's the right thing to do, right? That's what you want to hear as trust. And you put that message on broadcast medium. In India, we kind of revere TV, right? As you learn from TV. Whenever we do focus group discuss people, we learn from TV, right? So on TV, there is a body coming and saying, you know what, this is the right thing to do. Right? That's the assurance, that's the nod, that's the sense of a sage archetype that Indians need when it comes to money. So I think they got that piece right, A. B, they demystified everything, right? They opened the box called mutual fund and they went with multiple messaging. Now that, Anupam, you have to understand, is not how the Western marketing theory works. The Western marketing theory says you have to say only one thing. Right, and keep repeating just one thing, the single-mindedness, right? But in India, you can say many things. We are a complex mind, Indians, right? We can have 3, 4, 5 ideas in our minds at one point in time. Look at all our religious texts; they are very complicated, layered texts. Ramayana, Mahabharata.
Absolutely.
Right? Our texts are not single-minded. So they caught on to that, and therefore the messaging. It talks about you can do it with any amount of money, you can do it for any goal, you can do it for any time period, you can for multiple purposes. So they went with multiple messaging, right? And they demystified the whole structure. I would say the role of celebrities, etc., is there, but I would say that campaign would be successful despite that.
Nice.
Because of the approach, I think it obviously makes it a little bit more sticky if you have brand ambassadors saying it. But I wouldn't hinge the whole success of the campaign to that. I would hinge the success of the campaign to being simple, demystifying it, and the sage tone of voice. Somebody in India, people want to say this is the right thing to do. Buy Maruti is the right thing to do. Buy mutual funds is the right thing to do. Buy Colgate, you will not go wrong. That's the country we are.
Yeah. So listeners, just give that a thought. If you're someone who started an SIP in the last few years, just think about the role that campaign played. Fintech brands and advertising. Okay. They just went over. I think that was last year, right? There was credit. There was a lot of people who were going on IPL, putting on ads out there, and not just television. Whenever you go online, okay, depending on your, because online you can target your campaigns, target your audiences, etc. They just went into overdrive, okay? Probably because the funding happened or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, you speak to a lot of these financial fintech startups. So what was happening out there? What worked and where do you see that going from here on? Just for the fintech startups.
See, there's a huge, in last, say, about decade or so, say 5, 6, 7 years, there's a huge opportunity that's been mapped on moving a lot of the behavior from offline to online, right? So say Acco as an insurance player online, say the whole UPI piece and what we did with PhonePe. Right. So all across these brands, our job has been to shift a current behavior from an offline mode to online mode. So most of the fintech startups have come in that zone of building new online behaviors to a erstwhile offline behavior, right? And that's where the whole action has been. When we were building PhonePe, for example, we were very aware that you take a brand such as PhonePe, right? There's also Google Pay. And Google as a brand is far more, has much higher awareness for many other usages in the country. How do you bring a brand like PhonePe and make it the number one brand? And Indians also, at least at that point in time, would feel that Google is a sexy, cool brand. So, Gen Z would love Google and maybe not love PhonePe. But after we worked on PhonePe as a brand for a couple of campaigns, we became number one again for the same reason. We brought in humor into finance as a category, right? Our biggest campaign, which ran on IPL with Alia Bhatt and Amir Khan, was a completely funny campaign, but it stuck to people's mind. But through the humor and through fun, we landed very, very simple messaging that you can use it for any amount. It is safe. Everybody accepts it, right? Your money will not go away. So again, multiple messaging, right? So we did not give one message, multiple messaging, demystified it, built a sense of trust and familiarity, and also a sense that everybody is doing it, and therefore the right thing to do, right?
Very interesting.
So that's again the formula in finance brand building as well.
Okay, moving on, when I think about this, the generation gap today is quite stark. And I say this from the perspective of the consumer of financial products and the manufacturer of financial products are two very different generations. And so to some extent, even the advertiser, some, I don't understand how are you going to, connect given this kind of situation.
Yeah.
So given that in mind, when it again comes to financial products, how do you think that brands are managing this? You spoke about phone pay. Now that again uses some very, very basic elements that has reached out to people.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at an investing audience, who wants like the next big thing or wants something fast, something hot, how do you reach out to this audience with a financial product which is actually quite simple state? So what's your view on the generation gap?
See, I think there's a lot of work to be done here. Honestly, I don't think we've got that right completely, right? Because the reasons that the younger generation wants to invest in are different from the reasons that our generation wanted to invest in. So the way they want to do it, the reasons they want to do it are completely different. And sometimes our insights into them are also wrong. So I remember we're doing a youth campaign for HDFC Bank, and some of the earlier insights, oh my God, youth is reckless, they want to spend money, they don't want to save, let's go with a pedagogical campaign trying to teach them that they should invest. That would have bombed.
Wow.
In fact, we had the insight which was the other way. We said that youth is actually responsible. So the campaign we ran was young and responsible.
Wow.
And it was a hugely successful campaign for youth, because you're giving them credit for what they're already doing, right? They might be doing it for different reasons, right? They might be saving for a startup that they want to do 3 years later, or they might be saving for a solo trip that they want, and that's all right. Those are their goals, right? So the recognition of those goals in an authentic, real way is something you need to do, because they will not save for the reasons that, or invest for the reasons you want to invest. A. B, I think a lot of work has to be done on the interface of how investment happens by itself, right? I mean, because this is a generation which is used to Instagram, right? You need an investment app which works like Instagram, right? Currently, our investment apps work like complicated codes on PCs, right? They're not even mobile friendly. So that's the gap that finance brands have to cover.
Any memorable ads in the BFSI sector that that you like or that you can talk about?
See, I would some of our own work in terms of phone pay, for example, did really well. The whole Amir Alia campaign. In my last job at Burnett, we also brought Circuit and Munna Bhai back for ACO, health insurance.
Oh yeah.
Right?
It was just recent.
Whole health insurance campaign we ran, and that's done dramatically. In fact, that was a coup to get them back and get Vidhu Vinod Chopra. The whole casting itself was a coup, because the whole challenge was, how do you launch a health insurance product in 2023 in a new, interesting way? So that's again very close to my heart. 2 pieces of work that in fact I have done. Long time back, I had done a campaign for Tata AIG, which was, whole thing was around values, because Tatas and values, and saying that if your foundations are right, your flight will be good. That was again a very interesting campaign that we did.
Okay. Now, just wrapping up the first half of this episode, let's talk about influence, right?
Yeah.
The rise of influencers in these past few years. How do how important do you think they are in general? This whole influencer thing, which is, I think, about say 5 years or maybe more than that. First at a general level, and then specific to financial products.
Yeah. See, you have to understand the rise of the whole influencer commerce piece, right? Obviously, there's a cultural phenomena to why influencers have come up, because YouTube and all of that. But the commercial piece on rise of influencers also, it coincides with the rise of startups, right? The two phenomena, if you realize, you can map them like to like. So what's happened is that the first 10 million consumer journey, right? You're a startup, you want to get first 5 million, 10 million people. It is not feasible for you to go to TV. It's not feasible for you to get a high celebrity, right? So most of the startups in the early journey are using performance and are using influencers, and they're able to get to a critical mass, get to a first level of say Series A funding just basis on performance marketing and influencer. So in that sense, the whole commercial rise of the influencer segment is a big boon because it gave the whole startup world a new medium. Otherwise, there was a huge gap. I mean, how do you, I mean, with that kind of a budget, how do you, I mean, you can't go to TV. How do you build that audience? Right? So that's the reason why influencers become big. What it does in many categories, say categories such as beauty, for example, Anupam, right? It's a huge game because you can demo the product. Influencers have their own audiences, right? And it is easy way to get the first few customers, right? The other thing influencers bring is what I call quick trust. Right? I mean, the whole idea of trust in branding and marketing and advertising has, oh my God, you need a decade to build trust. You have to be a Tata to build a trust. But if I'm building a startup, I don't have a decade to build trust, right? I have a few months before I go to investors and ask for more money, right? What influencers have allowed the new age brands to do is give them a quick shortcut to trust. Right? So you may not trust me as a brand yet because I have just launched my brand, but I am talking to you through an influencer who you trust, right? So that's become the via media, right? And therefore, I think it's a fantastic medium which has come up between large scale celebrities, TV advertising, and performance marketing. So it is not as functional as performance is. It's more qualitative, but it's not as expensive as TV is.
Yeah, you want to talk about the dark side out here, and I'm saying specific to financial products because SEBI is now, realize that a lot of these influencers get carried away. Okay, or in the search for views or hits or whatever it's called in the digital world, their messaging might not be something that's that's appropriate for a lot of the viewers. And this is different if you're selling a shampoo versus if you're selling a mutual fund or you're selling a get rich quick scheme, or you're saying subscribe to my product and I'll triple your money and you got to give me your money. Two very different things, right? So you just talk about the dark side of influencers and long term, where do you see this going?
See, I think early days there was no regulation, right? And that always happens. When a phenomena starts, nobody realizes it's going to
regulation lags.
So nobody comes and does regulation. And now that phenomena has become bigger, now suddenly people have woken up. ASCII has woken up, and now there's regulation on influencers across categories, right? And now you have to mark out as a paid partnership. All of those things are coming in now, right? My sense is that any medium or any piece needs regulation. Some of it has to be self-regulation, like we do in advertising, right? We're very clear of what kind of messaging would we put on a certain brand. I mean, otherwise you'll get rejected, right? So some of it will happen automatically. In fact, because influencers themselves will realize that, there's a certain trust equity they have with their audiences, and they will fritter that away if they do the wrong things, right? There will always be in any medium 5% or 10% of outliers where things will go wrong. That happens everywhere. That happens with bank brands, that happens with shampoo brands, that happens with influencers, happens with TV advertising, happens with cinema as well, right? So that will happen. I'm not too worried about it, right? I think regulation is good. Regulation is good. It'll put things into perspective. But at the same time, you have to understand that the whole influencer game works because you allow influencers the freedom to talk in their language, in their code, in their own way. So too much of frittering of that, if the influencer pieces begin to look like advertising, you've lost the plot.
It's going to be authentic.
It won't be authentic. So you have to be careful about how much of guideline do you want to put there, and how much of it's like. A lot of brands want to use influencers and they dictate them so much that they want the piece to almost look like advertising, and then you get no interaction on those pieces because you've lost the authenticity of the influencer. So it's a tightrope walk. I think it does need regulation. Some of it will be self-regulation because more than anything else, what is most precious to influencers is their audience. That's their currency. They will not lose that at any cost.
And trust. I mean, once they've lost the trust, it's difficult to bring it back. So, Dheeraj, building businesses in India, you speak to a wide range of people for your podcast also. How has that changed in these past few decades in general, and then again specific to fintechs? You spoke about Acco, you spoke about PhonePe. What has worked, what has not worked? Just let's talk about that for a while.
See, lots of things, right? Say, India is what I call a leader brand country. Right, we don't care for challenges, and there's a joke I tell. Right, I mean, if you look at the Indian airports, say Indian airports a decade back, and you went to the Delhi airport, right? There was one gate, and the queue went all the way almost to Dwarka, right? It was such a long queue. Suddenly you had GVK, GMRs,
GMRs,
new
yeah.
new airports, swanky 24 gates. You went back to the Delhi airport. You still saw one long queue on the first gate going all the way back, because Indian mindset is there's so many people standing here. Something must be right with this gate. Why try 23 other and be mistaken, right?
Uh,
So Indians like standing in longest queues, right? We want to buy things, buy brands which are trusted, right? And therefore look at across categories. Top three market players explain 80 to 90% of market share in any category, right? So we are
Interesting.
not a challenger brand country. Our market shares are not spread out evenly amongst 10 players. The big keep on becoming bigger. So people will buy Maruti because everybody buys Maruti, and
Correct.
you cannot go wrong buying Maruti. So India is a market for leader brands. I mean, I will go with the guy where I can't go wrong with. The cost of standing out and going wrong is much higher than the cost of standing in and being same. So people will buy, you like something, I'll buy more of that. So how do you use that when you're building new brands, right? You have to almost pretend a queue. So for example, when we were building Amazon, we ran a campaign saying sub Amazon wale. So we're
Okay.
saying everybody's using Amazon, you can't go wrong. So you have to actually pretend the queue of saying that everybody is doing this. So you have to come with a leadership stance. You have to own the biggest codes of the category, which is very different from the international model where they say you have to find something which is differentiated. If you want to find something differentiated, it might be the 10th code in the category, but then nobody cares about that.
Mm.
You know, I want to buy a car, I want to buy for mileage, I want to buy a mutual fund, I want to buy for returns and safety. You want to buy these brands for the biggest, most central codes of the category. So please do not go trying to look for nth advantage that, oh, you know, you can dilute this mutual fund faster. Nobody
Yeah.
cares for
Yeah.
that, right? So leadership stands central codes of the category, and you have to wrap everything in cultural relevance. You go to India and say, you know what, this is a new way of doing things, you'll get rejected. But you go to India and you say, you know what, this will make your traditional way of doing things better, they'll say, yeah. So in India, you sell new through grounds of familiarity. So we sold Amazon by saying, और दिखाओ, you know, और अपनी दुकान. We said, ये तो आपकी अपनी दुकान जैसा है. ये आपको return देता है. This gives you, you know, recommendations and so on and so forth. So those are the three big principles of building businesses in India, which is very, very different from how the Western model works. So relevance, be a leader brand, right, and be culturally familiar rather than culturally different.
Yeah. How do you relate that to fintechs? It applies there also, and we can talk about brand, right? Because again, I just choose the IPL because that's one
Yeah.
place where a lot of the brands showcase their their brand, so to say, because
Yeah.
it's got a huge audience.
Yeah.
Talk about Cred, talk about PhonePe, like you
Yeah.
said. Talk about Acco. Acco is
Yeah.
doing this also
Yeah,
very
huge.
recently. So do fintechs get what you're saying? You know, because they're also going to the same market. And for fintechs, I think the one difference that's there that is different from, say, a bank or a mutual fund is that the budgets are limited, right?
Yeah.
They are being funded by external capital, which
Yeah.
till it's there, it's there. When it's not there, it kind of dries out.
Yeah.
So what are your views on that? I mean, just for the fintech industry as such and the
Yeah.
products they
Yeah,
have.
I think IPL has been a great platform, right? It's expensive. It's expensive, but couple of things. One is that it goes on for 4 months, right? So if you stay out of IPL, you're pretty much not doing media for 4 months, which is like one full quarter in a year, right? So a lot of times you don't have a choice but to go on IPL, because during IPL, if you go to any other media, you're not getting any bang for your
Like the
buck.
Super Bowl of the US.
Yeah, it's a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
We have always seen that whenever we've got a brand to IPL and coming out of IPL, we've had a huge delta.
Wow.
Whether it's been PhonePe, whether it's been Acco, whether it's been Spotify, all the brands we've taken to IPL, we've come out with a huge delta. It's expensive. Is the best ROI platform in the country.
Wow.
Right?
For that kind of expense, it's still the best
It's
ROI.
still the best ROI platform in the
amazing.
country. If you want to go from, say, 60 million, 70 million base to 100 million, 120 million base, nothing like IPL, right?
Okay.
The way it helps you scale up. But there are tricks to capture. It's a short span. So 10 seconders, 15 seconders, 20 seconders. Again, multiple messaging. So when we did PhonePe, we did 10 spots. And all the spots said different things. right? But you string it together through some memory structure that people recognize it back. The awareness post IPL also goes through the roof. And India, market share is directly proportional to awareness. So if I know you, I will buy you. If I see you often, I think India says that if you're spending so much of money, standing up with so much of confidence and saying these things in IPL, I should try you.
Yeah.
You know, that's how the whole IPL piece works for brands in India.
Yeah. So financial products are still a new category, right? Whether you talk about a demat account, you talk about a mutual fund folio, you talk about share trading, you talk about insurance, you talk about anything.
Yeah.
I like to think of it as, maybe 20, 30 years ago when we were starting our careers, the FMCG products or the
Yes.
consumer durables product, fridge, washing machines,
Yeah.
shampoos, etc., etc. The penetration was hardly there.
Yeah.
And now, of course, 20, 30 years later, we are in a different zone.
Yeah.
Financial products are pretty much, I would say, in that zone. How do you think brands are going to evolve in the financial space going forward?
I feel a few things will change. The biggest change will be in the interface of how you interact with brands, right? I mean, look at about 10, 15 years back, you had to go to a bank, stand in a queue. The teller looked like, somebody highly authoritarian. They would choose whether to give you money back or not money back, or rebuke you and send you outside. I mean, that was the idea of a finance brand interaction. From there to saying, now you have an app, you can, do the transaction, you can see whether it has gone through, not gone through. We've shifted to that. So there's a huge leapfrog. I think that will change even further. I think the benchmark for financial brand interaction is Instagram. Right? It has to be as simple, as engaging, as exciting. Right now, it's not exciting. I mean, you still go to a finance brand app with drudgery. You don't go to them with excitement. I think it has to shift to a sense of excitement. It has to give you nudges. It has to map your journey. It has to make the whole idea of investing, saving exciting. It has to, through opt-ins, understand where you are right now. If you're shopping, in fact, one of my interesting case studies done by a bank called Westpac. It's an old case study where if you're shopping something, they will send you a nudge that this $50 they're spending on a T-shirt, you could actually swipe it into your saving account. And there's a red button. You push that button, and that money gets swiped into your investment account.
Nice.
Now that's very interesting behavior economics nudge. Right? So I think there's a lot of work to be done on nudging, on user interface, on how financial brands interact with the new age audiences, because the game, that the mindset is same. I'm interacting with Google and Echo and PhonePe and Instagram in the same breath. My expectations are similar. So that's one. Second, I think the way the brands speak and the brands are being built also had to be far more engaging, a bit entertaining, I would say, because also finance brands take themselves too seriously, right? So it has to be engaging, it has to be entertaining, it has to be simpler, right? I want to have a brand which I want to hang around with. Why should banks feel like my father or my grandfather? I think that attitude needs to change.
Very interesting. Okay, just wrapping up the episode, Dheeraj. I don't usually get someone who's, from the advertising industry. Therefore, your perspective about your own savings and investment habits would be very unique to our listeners. Okay, and especially since you spent 23 years in the industry, you've seen a lot of things. If someone comes up to you now and asks you for advice on money and investment, of course, not what stock to buy, but habits, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say from my business and being in advertising, because you start young and then, you get caught in lifestyle very early.
That's the thing in advertising, right?
Yeah, you get caught in lifestyle, clothes and cars and all of that. I would say start the investment journey early.
Nice.
Right? And the whole idea of compounding that I learned much later in life, I would say if you're 22, 23, 25, start leveraging the idea of compounding right now. It's a good time to do that, A. B, because of my generation, the way we thought, we got locked into real estate a lot. Right? So don't lock yourself in real estate. Don't lock yourself in real estate so early. Right? For many reasons. And for example, you need to be fungible in today's times. Your next job could be in Europe. It could be in Southeast Asia. So stay fungible. Don't lock yourself in real estate. Either which ways the returns are crappy. Right? You end up paying more money to society for maintenance than you ever earn that money back. So these are learnings which I have had hard way, and later on in my life, I wish I knew these early on. So I think those are a couple of things. So as a start early, build a behavior, enjoy your life. I'm not saying don't enjoy your life. Enjoy your life, but start the habit early.
Yeah, you're reminding me of when I was in in my 20s. I had a couple of friends who were working for the agencies at that time. It was, I think, JWT or HTA.
Yeah.
And whenever I used to go to their offices, I was like, and I'm a chartered accountant, right?
Yeah.
I work in some of the most dreariest places doing a lot of boring stuff. The lifestyle thing, I mean, it's so important. It's so important. And I would just look at them and say, what am I? I'm doing something like really boring.
Yeah.
Why? So this whole lifestyle thing, do you think it's also changed now with so many influencers telling you to enjoy life and be, be consumption focused?
Yeah.
Where does a young guy find that balance? Like, how do I save and how do I enjoy life here? What do you think?
I think you're right. I think there's this whole plethora of brands, opportunities. In my times, I mean, how many flights could you take and go out? But today, I mean, the whole idea of solo travel. So there is money required for all of this, right? Eating out, the opportunity just about opened up in a huge way, right? But at the same time, I also feel that there's a huge awareness about investment. And I mean, my insight into the generation is that they're not young and reckless. They're young and responsible.
Nice.
Right? I think there is a understanding that they need to invest. They need to save. They're also very clever. I mean, they understand the ideas of investment and growth better than my generation did. But I think some bit of work from brands and marketing on that, because they may understand at an intent level, but at a physical level, are you making it easy for them to do? Yeah. Right? I think that's where the gap is from a demand and supply perspective. But if you can do that, I think we have a winner there.
Cool. We are done. My standard question, my last question to all our guests: what book are you reading, or any content suggestions for our listeners there?
I'm right now reading Naval Ravikant's Almanac. Right? It's an old book, not a new book, but I'm finding it very interesting just going through it in snippets. Also, a lot of Adam Grant work I read on leadership and so on and so forth. Yeah, those are two pieces on the list. Right
Anything
now.
You're watching?
I'm watching Ted Lasso, the last season.
Why? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a big sports. Also, there's a series on football. I forget the name on Netflix right now on the football
Captains to Lead.
So I'm watching that. So I'm a big fan.
Drive to Survive. Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive. Yeah. So the whole how sports works, how sports mindset work, how sports team work. That's a fascination for me. So anything on that, I'm always up for that.
Lovely. Nice recommendations there. So, folks, that is a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa, really special episode. My guest, Dheeraj Sinha, Group CEO for India and South Asia, FCB Group. Dheeraj, thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you. Amazing talking to you.
IVM